Welcome to our 10th edition of the Seacoast Sports Forum. We've got a lot to talk about today. I guess as we transition into the holiday season, we also wrap up the fall sports season and head into the winter. We had a busy weekend. Football officially is wrapped up for the season for the state of New Hampshire.
Yes, it was exciting 36 hours between UNH on Saturday and the high school tournament finales for football on Sunday.
At Wildcat, yeah. We had a beautiful day for a football game on Saturday for the Wildcats, and in case you missed that game, the Wildcats defeated UMaine and took home the Bryce Cowell Musket, which is the traditional trophy between the two states, and we've had dibs on it for a lot of years. We lost it last season, but we got it back, and that's all that matters. And it was a good way to cap the season. The Wildcats were looking forward, maybe a slim chance to get into the NCAA tournament playoffs, but it didn't happen. They missed it by that much.
They finished at 5-3 in the CAA, their conference, and games are going to haunt them over the season. The last second loss to Holy Cross, because Holy Cross did get into the tournament, along with, I think, Albany, James Madison, and Villanova, I think, were the 4 CAA teams that moved ahead. Ricky Santos, interim head coach, had the team playing tough that final game. It was a close game all the way against Maine, but the Wildcats prevailed, and you and I were at that game, Sherman. One of the top UNH players, Prince Smith Jr., who played so well over his college career over in Durham. Unbelievable. And it was so fantastic for him to get a scoop and score in the last minute of play to score a touchdown to end it and seal the victory for the Wildcats.
And when they went nuts on the sidelines to go back and get the musket, because it was on the main sideline, so they had to run across the field. And that was probably one of my best calls all season. I said, the Bryce Cowell Musket now comes back to the state of New Hampshire. It was just, one proud moment for those kids.
I was worried for the safety of the main administrator who had the musket.
They were just being
all
charged.
Of a sudden, he hit 80 Wildcats running toward him.
Whoa.
And he said, here, bye, see you later. And he took off.
Well, but it was a pretty successful season if you, in hindsight, if you look at it. I'm sure they all wish that they had qualified for the playoffs, but you had to switch gears right before the beginning of the season, where Coach Mack was forced because of an illness to step aside. Santos' rookie season. Sure. They also played with a freshman quarterback. Right. So, and to come out with a record over 500, I think is pretty darn good.
Right.
And one thing I did want to mention about Coach Mack, it was senior day Saturday as well, and Coach Mack was there to greet every one of those seniors on that team, and it was just good to see that man back on the field. And again, like you just said, Ricky Santos had a good rookie season. We'll call it a rookie season, and we'll see how things play out.
Well, it's one thing to know going into the season, or if they all of a sudden say, okay, now you are going to be, you have this planning time as a head coach to get yourself mentally ready. You're doing preparation, scouting. It becomes your team. He filled in for Coach Mack. It was really Coach Mack's team. He was trying to keep everything going forward, and I think he did an admirable job.
He did a fine job. You could see.
And it was an appropriate win over Maine. That it was led by the defense. because we go back to August and we said, what's going to be the strength of the Wildcats? Well, it's going to be the defense. It's going to be led by the defensive secondary. They're going to be top-notch players. Evan Horn was named the CAA Defensive Player of the Week. He had a great game. He was all over the field on Saturday. And the Wildcats won it with defense, and I think that was the way that it needed to go.
All right. We, like you said, had a busy weekend at UNH. That was Saturday. Now let's move to Sunday and discuss the elephant in the room. The NHIAA tournament, football tournament. Now we had 3 divisions. Let's work backwards. Let's start with Division 3. That was a great game. I thought that was, of the 3 games. And first off, the weather conditions were horrendous. I mean, those kids, and again, congratulations to any and all fans who showed up to support their teams, especially the second game, the monsoon rains.
Yeah.
It was literally leaking in our booth. The winds were blowing the rain back in, and the windows were closed. That's how bad it was. It was horrendous conditions for all 3 teams to play under, but they have to play football, and that's all that matters.
I think the first game, Lebanon was undefeated, and they were certainly the favorites in that game coming in. They had just dominated every team all season long. The Trinity Pioneers back in the playoffs after, football was gone for Trinity for a while.
That's what we discussed in our last show, yeah.
And I mean, came back now, and Trinity struck first, and I think that was the key scoring that first touchdown kind of was really important for Trinity to keep them in that ball game.
Well, I think if Lebanon had scored the first touchdown, the game would have been definitely different. But Trinity came right down and went right down the field and got that first score, and the Pioneer fans across the way in the rain were going nuts. I mean, they were into it. They thought their team had a shot, and they played very, very well, and it was back and forth the whole game. It was a good game. In past years, some of these games have been blowouts. But this was a very, very competitive game all the way down to the end. But congratulations to the Pioneers posting that victory. It's been a long time for Manchester to win.
28-21 final score, yeah. Trinity over Lebanon, and I thought it was a great game. And of the 3 games, the weather was probably just starting to really take a turn for the worse. So the challenge began early for them.
It did.
And then in game 2, that's when the rains really came down. And that featured Hollis Brookline, the favorite team, going up against the Plymouth Bobcats. And I misspoke on our last show. I said they were going after a 3-peat. They were actually going after a 4-peat, for their 4th division championship in a row. Sam?
Plymouth, they're the perennial champs,
yes.
And you expect them to come out and just dominate. And didn't know anything about Hollis Brookline. I hadn't seen them play all year, but they came out and they could run the ball, and they were a very good running team. They controlled the ball, controlled the pace of the game, and I think that was the difference in that one. And didn't make any mistakes. That's what we were all commenting about. How many fumbles
with the weather
were going to happen in that ball game, and there weren't that many. They played some pretty errorless ball in that contest.
And again, Plymouth, both those teams brought a big crowd, or for the weather conditions, a big crowd as far as I was concerned. The support, Plymouth went home a little disappointed because again they were going after that 4-peat, but Hollis Brookline stepped up to the plate and got the job done.
Didn't know much about that club.
No, we didn't. They were kind of came out from left field, so to speak.
They're relatively new to the sport of.
Could be.
I don't think they've had a football team for many years, Hollis Brookline. I know they certainly didn't back when I was coaching.
And then at 6 o'clock at night, it was still raining.
Oh, it's still raining hard.
And not quite as bad as it was in game 2, but it was nice to see our team, the Exeter Blue Hawks, show up in uniform, go into the locker room, come out a few minutes later, get to their warm-ups, no problems there, and into the contest, and didn't quite come out the way we expected. We, meaning the 3 of us here, would have hoped. Londonderry completed their undefeated season, and the final score was 21-10. But why don't you recap in case anybody didn't go to the game?
Well, for the recap of the game, the Exeter Blue Hawks on the opening drive went down, right down the field. They got stalled and had to kick a field goal, and Nolan Elmore, who's been solid all season long
He's
in
nails.
that condition, was able to get a 26-yard field goal to open the scoring. So just like that, the Blue Hawks, you know, and watching the pregame warm-ups, when the Blue Hawks came out of the tunnel, they were fired up. They were as excited as I had ever seen them, and you felt good saying, boy, they're really into this. And you know, Londonderry was rather functional on their side of the field, running their warm-ups, and you know, as you do in warm-ups, you check and see how the quarterback's throwing, how are the kickers kicking, those types of things. The wind was the factor. The wind was going from left to right, and the team that had the wind had the advantage in that ball game. Exeter took the wind on the first drive. They did not win the toss. They deferred. Londonderry won and deferred. And Exeter took the wind, went right down and scored. But then the Lancers came back in the second period, 52 seconds left to go. Jake McEachran finished off a 14-play, 85-yard drive that went 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, Bill, you've coached a lot in bad weather games. And the quotes from the coaches that I read later basically said, in a game like that, with the wind and the rain so bad it was, you have to throw out half your playbook. Just
Exactly.
like that, you know, and tell the kids, this is what we need to do.
Right.
You know, you're coaching a game like that, what do you tell your kids? You know, hang on to the ball and
Yes.
we're just going straight ahead.
Right.
And don't fool around with, we're not going to be running any reverses, we're not going to running any screen passes, we're not doing anything like that. And so both teams were handcuffed by that. Now, traditionally, you have to say, this was an Exeter football weather day. We've seen Exeter
Right.
play really strong in games like this. But that drive by McEachran to close out the first half gave Londonderry a 7-3 lead at the end of the half, which was no surprise. You knew it was going to be low scoring.
Right.
So the third period was scoreless, back and forth. But then the Blue Hawks did something that, even though the Blue Hawks lost the game, this is something they can live with and build on. And it's going to be a long winter, getting ready for spring football and getting ready for that. But you can live with a 18-play, 75-yard drive in the rain, in the weather, takes up 9 minutes and 32 seconds, and you take the lead. What a drive that was. Unbelievable. Capped off by Jaden Cleach, a 2-yard run for the touchdown. And that gave the Blue Hawks the lead, 10-7. Feeling pretty good going into the fourth quarter. But as it happens in title games and things like that, and weather games like that, it was the flip of the coin in the fourth quarter. And Londonderry got the advantage. They put on a strong drive in the fourth quarter themselves. They were able to go 7 plays, 56 yards, and take the lead 14-10 on a Jake McEachran touchdown, 1-yard run. And then 2 turnovers allowed Londonderry to keep control of the game and not allow Exeter to get back in it. And so the eventual final touchdown was a Tyler Ko 2-yard run with 4:21 left to go for the eventual 21-10 win.
You know, on our previous show, you and I had discussed key players, key matchups, whatever, and I said I'd done some video on these guys, Londonderry, and everything I saw in that Salem game basically came to fruition in this game against the Blue Hawks. McEachran, he did the same thing, broke off a big one in the Salem game. He did it against us.
112 yards,
Yeah.
2 touchdowns, 20 carries.
Wiedenfeld, he's their big go-to guy. He racked up a bunch of yardage.
95 yards, 18 attempts.
And then they had, on the defensive side, Will Reyes, who was their big stopper. So, I mean, they came to play. And obviously, I think the Blue Hawks came to play as well, no question there. And no excuses on the weather. Both teams were playing under the same conditions. And it's just a matter of, I think you and I discussed it in the last show, just who's taking charge.
Right. And, you know, no, it's, I know we all feel bad for the Blue Hawks, because that's the team we're associated with. But I think they acquitted themselves. They had a fantastic season. They knew they were the underdogs coming in. Everyone in the state expected Londonderry to win, and probably to win big.
Right. Yeah.
But it didn't happen, thankfully. They did win, and rightfully so. I mean, the shame of it is, how many games had we gone without a turnover?
Right. 11 turnovers, 4 turnovers in the first 11 games.
Yeah.
Okay?
And
And
then
then three
three.
in the final one.
Yeah.
But the weather was so bad. I mean,
Yeah.
Exeter, through the first 3 quarters, Exeter had ball control. They were playing their game. They controlled the ball over 23 minutes of the first 36 minutes. So everything was going Exeter's way. But again, the ball didn't bounce their way in the
Right.
second half. And Londonderry, a mature team, a lot of seniors, the kids who have won a lot of ball games, they stepped up.
Right.
And they did it in crunch time when they needed to do it. So congratulations to the Lancers and Coach Jimmy Lozon for their win, and certainly Coach Ball and the Blue Hawks. Again, for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, getting to the Super Bowl or getting to the World Series or getting the title game,
Yeah.
that's what you need to do. Whatever happens after
Amen.
that, I really don't care about. I mean, the Patriots may have lost those Super Bowls to the Giants and to the Eagles and to the Packers and to the Bears, and those times they were in the Super Bowl. I don't care about that. For me, it's numbers of appearance in the Super Bowl that count,
Right.
not wins and losses
Right.
of Super Bowls.
Right.
How many times do you get there? And we've been fortunate here with Exeter football over the years that the Blue Hawks get to the title game.
Well, I wanted to just take a quote from a column that Ryan O'Leary of Seacoast Online from Coach Ball after the game. And Coach Ball said, "I can't say enough about this group, the senior class, and this team." Ball said, "I told them I've been in a lot of these games. This performance was up there with any of them. They really did it tonight. They played," end quote. And I want to say, as I was leaving the parking lot that night, all the off-field stuff had been done, and the Blue Hawks were coming back to the bus, and they were all coming by my car in uniform. Everybody still in uniform. Nobody with their helmet off, and heads up, heads high, held high, and I sat there so proud of them. I mean, if I was a parent or grandparent of one of those kids, I would have loved to give them a hug or a high five or whatever, because they put it out there. They really did. They put it all out there that night. And of course, Coach Ball's the last man heading to the bus. And I've seen a lot of teams over the years, and arguably this is one of the best with balance, offense and defense, to make it to the championship game. I've seen, like I said, a lot of championship games. Londonderry, it took them 21 seasons to get to the show. And I guess this is something I'll give you a little preview of a little talk I might give the guys, and probably will at the banquet. I'm going to just tell them to remember that the Blue Hawks have been to the championship game under Coach Ball 16 times. So that just shows Exeter Blue Hawks consistency, and the history's there. Reporters might call Londonderry a team of destiny because this was their season, undefeated. But we'll check back in 10 years and see where they stand on the record books. I know where the Blue Hawks are, and
what I want to say is a couple of things on. First of all, hats off to them, to the Blue Hawks. They came off a year last year that was disappointing. They had a lot of big names, and for some reason, things didn't go the way everyone thought it was going to be. If you remember, I believe we were less than 500 last year. And They came back, they dedicated themselves in the off-season. They had great senior leadership, and they turned it around. Like Sam said, they got to the championship game. How many other schools out there wish that they had been there? So hats off to them. I would have also to say, I'm going to mention, I don't like to to pick people out, but boy, Ryan Grahava had himself a heck of a year.
Exactly, yep.
A heck of a year.
I put him in all the quarterbacks that I've seen over the years. I put him up there
Yeah.
in that top echelon, no doubt about it.
He did. And the improvement, and one thing we had mentioned on air, Jeff and I, is how often do you see a senior become quicker? I mean, he was faster as a senior than he had shown when he took over as a junior. I mean, he was intelligent, he distributed the ball, he carried out his fakes, he ran the team. Hats off to him. I thought he had an outstanding senior year, as did all of the seniors.
I think on the other side of the ball, the Exeter defense sometimes gets overlooked.
Correct.
Because, you know, the strong running of the Exeter backs and Ryan Grijalva, but on the defensive side of the ball, they played a solid games in the playoffs. What they did to Merrimack, very, very impressive. And then taking on Londonderry, Dayton Christensen, I thought was the defensive standout for the Blue Hawks. He had some hits on some of those Londonderry backs that were crushing. And how they held on to the ball, I don't know. But he played a heck of a game. And again, you know, it was that kind of rock'em sock'em game where neither team could throw. So you had to put 8 men in the box, and you had to say, okay, beat me.
Right.
And Londonderry had a few more weapons, got a few more plays, and that was the name of the game.
Yeah.
And one more thing, I don't think people who follow the team realize it, but just the lay people who, in high school, there are a lot of two-way players on that field. And I mean, they wear down. It's emotional, but it's physical. You know, I mean, you're putting it all out there. You know, especially if you're behind in the game, you're trying to make something happen, but you have to contain that. You just can't just go out there emotionally and say, hey, I'm going to make this happen. You know, you have to do what you have to do within the confines of the coaching staff. And so it is hard. I mean, these guys, and that was with the weather conditions the other day.
Well, I think
it was wearing a lot of those kids down. You know.
Just to wrap up, I want to just tip the cap to Jeff Collins and his staff for running a solid program for the championship game at Durham. The NHIAA contracts with the UNH staff, and those people did a whale of a job. I mean, from the parking lot attendants out in that rain all day long to the people running the concessions and handling and running Wildcat Stadium, they all did a great job. So it's I think, you know, there's some discussion out there is, you know, should high school playoff games be played at high school sites? You know, should the final game be played at a high school site? Just like all the other championships, lacrosse and soccer are all, you know, Exeter hosts the state lacrosse tournament, Stellos the soccer games, Bedford High some other ones. Should the championship game be played at a high school site as opposed to the college site?
Okay. A football field is a football field is a football field. I think the kids take a lot of pride in going there. What I'm going to compare it to is basketball.
Right.
Basketball, where do we play the finals?
At London.
Lundholm, yeah.
And now I'm going to make a suggestion. Because you gentlemen are involved, when they do the finals, you have 2 games on the final day. As someone who is getting older in age,
Right.
the thought of going somewhere at 6 o'clock at night in the pouring rain and the cold, and then turning around and driving home at 8:30, 9 o'clock is not all that appealing.
Right.
Now, the basketball championship was held at 3 o'clock.
That's true.
And the first game was at
Noon.
Noontime.
Noon.
I knew.
This year, the Division One game is going to be at noon.
So what I'm wondering is, why not take, just like they do in basketball, the Division II game, the Division I game, and play them at UNH, and maybe you play the Division III and IV game at Plymouth.
That would make sense.
And then you could play the first game at noon, the second game at 3.
Yeah.
Now, if you're telling people they're going to go at 3 o'clock in the pouring rain and the cold,
Little different.
and no one knows what the weather's
Oh, no,
going to
Well,
be.
that was the funny thing. I was watching Channel 9 all week long, trying to figure out, hoping that they'd come up with a perfect day like it was Saturday.
You better
Unfortunately,
make reservations in advance.
yeah,
You can't.
it was. Wow.
But I'm
That's
just
a-
I'm
that's a
just
good
I'm just comparing it to basketball and the let me tell you the the Division III schools and the Division IV schools that play at Plymouth, they don't look at that as a come down. That's a big thing. We've been to Plymouth in girls ice hockey in years past and played the semifinals there. And I thought that was a great setup. I mean, it was a great place. Girls ice hockey plays their finals, but that's inside, and you play it at Southern New Hampshire. Not Southern New Hampshire, the SNHU Arena.
Arena, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Verizon, used to be the Verizon,
Right,
yeah.
right. So, and we play at like 11 o'clock, I think, in the morning.
Right.
And that's fine. I mean, that's an inside venue. But again, that's as someone who would have loved to have gone to the game,
Yep.
didn't go to the game because I know there was no way my wife wanted to go. And
You could have come up in the booth with us.
Yeah.
I told you, I gave you
I
an
know,
invite.
I know.
We would have snuck
But-
you up
but-
in the
but my
elevator. Nobody
thing
would have-
is-
Who's that guy?
as someone who, again, is not comfortable at driving
In
and
those conditions,
Yeah.
that was the. Well, one thing I just want to mention about the other complication, and this is something that came up this year, which could have thrown a real monkey wrench into the whole thing. The Wildcat soccer team won the America East
Right.
Conference, so that gave them a bye into the NCAA tournament. Which, if they had had a home game, they would have been at UNH on Sunday, which would have complicated the whole ball of wax. It would have moved this Division III and II games to Friday night, which that would have been 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock was the proposed starts if that happened. And then the Division I game would have still been at 6 o'clock in the evening. But I mean, that would have been a real mess of a weekend for us, especially. We would have just camped out at UNH for a whole weekend. But I'm glad that didn't happen. And that is one thing I think they've got to, next year UNH is on the road on Saturday.
Championship games will be on Saturday, not on a Sunday.
So that'll help a bit. The weather, Mother Nature
right.
has.
I like the idea, though, when you talk about during the season, I like the idea of high school students getting to play a game at a college.
Yes.
A lot of those kids might not go to college,
right.
might never set foot on a college campus, might not see a college facility, and for them to do that, I think it's exciting. I think there's a lot of excitement to it. So I think playing at UNH, whether it's basketball or football, things like that, I think it's important to keep going on that. Timing is an issue. Bring that up. I think about that more and more these days.
But and the other thing, UNH is the campus is beautiful. Durham is a nice town.
Stadium's fantastic.
And the stadium is fantastic.
And next year they'll have the soccer stadium. I mean, the soccer field is there in place, but they're going to put stands up, and it'll be its own little entity. So it wouldn't complicate this in the future. Just this year it would have, and it would have thrown a real monkey wrench. That was the only one thing we were kind of hoping that wouldn't. You want to have the games all at one time, bang, 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 and it just get it done. Not complicate
Our 2
life.
cents by the Seacoast Sports Forum.
Oh yeah, that's what we're here for.
That's it.
I mean, really, I enjoyed the games. I just wish for and again, those fans for all 6 teams, the parents and real dedicated people who went to those games, round of applause for you.
I think in
folks.
Exeter football, I think in Exeter football, we think about the snow game that was at the old high school field against Girton, as terrible conditions. This could be number 2, and it could be second as far as how bad it was for players to play with the wind and the rain.
I was telling the guys up in our booth Sunday, for that game, the snow game, there was so much concern about getting the snow off the field. And I got up into and this was the old field, the old Eustis Field, and it was a cement block tower.
The treehouse.
The treehouse, yeah. I got up there and I look around and I go, where's the PA system? And they had forgotten to, they were so concerned about the field. And so luckily I had bought one as a backup and brought it with me that day. So that's what we used. And we got to the very final play in the game when I think it was Pat Murphy that scored the overtime touchdown in that game. And the snow was coming into the booth. They didn't have windows in that facility. I mean, we were just snow, sleet, everything. And I tried to keep the thing covered over, the amplifier. And at the very last play of the game, just as we're, and the final score is, you hear this, it shorted out on me. So, but we did get to acknowledge everybody, but the win was all that mattered. I mean, that was an exciting game.
I remember
That's
being
probably the best I've ever seen.
at the old field, and if you remember, there was also the mat on the side, and as the coaches were, whoever was up top spotting, when the game was over. Now, you guys, I think, used to climb down that ladder, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well,
And actually, they built stairs by the time I was there.
Okay.
I got lucky. They burnt that one down, the one you're talking
yeah.
about, and then they put the concrete block one up.
It used to be, okay, now you jump off and land on the pole vault mat. It's like, no, I'm not going up top again.
give me a rope, I'll swing down.
But yeah, it's amazing how times have changed.
Times have changed. It is a great facility, UNH, and we're very fortunate to be able to do the games there, and look forward to. And the other thing we want, before I forget, is the soccer. The payoff for the soccer. The Wildcats did get to go into the NCAA tournament. They won their first game against Fairleigh Dickinson, the prelim game, and then the second round they were down in Virginia and lost to Virginia Tech.
Right.
And so the season's over for the
And
Wildcats.
we kept our eyes on Jacob Gould.
Jake Gould of Exeter, yeah. Jake had a great
I guess
season
he
for
scored
them.
the only goal
did.
in that game.
He did.
He did, and I want to just say I got the last minute call to fill in for the announcer at that game, the America East game, the play-in game, and I said, I don't really know what I'm doing here, and one of our fellows up in the booth said, don't worry, I'll get you through it, and the biggest thing is pronunciations, because a lot of those kids are from foreign countries. I mean, Jake is an exception to that list, so I was practicing because I wanted to get it right. And I think I did a fairly good job. Sam was there with me. Everything came along fairly smooth, right? And we won the game. That's
Right,
all that
except when
mattered.
they scored a goal, you said touchdown. But
No, I did not. I did not. But the fact of the matter is, I've got an admiration now for those kids out on the field. I mean, that's 90 minutes running and gunning. I mean, I get just going up and down the aisles at Market Basket, I get winded. I mean, these kids are going strong for 90 minutes and very few subs.
Now, were you like that announcer when someone scored? You just go, go!
No, we have had to, and just like, unfortunately, I had one thing people were saying, like, you're gonna, do 1st and 10 Blue Hawks. The NHIAA, we have to play it down the middle. When I do the championship games, and if you notice though, I got Start Me Up on the PA
when
system.
Exeter came out.
Yeah,
right.
when Exeter came out on the field. That's having connections. 2-minute drill, gentlemen. Anything you'd like to throw on the table, Sam?
Well, I think I don't want to be a nervous Nelly about the New England Patriots and the Patriots offense. It was an awful game on Sunday as far as the rain and terrible, and they won and they beat Dallas, and that's great. But I watched the Baltimore Ravens last night just destroy the Los Angeles Rams, and I looked at that offense, and I looked at the Patriots offense, and I'm scratching my head, and I'm saying, this could be a problem.
Well, you're right about that. Actually, fantasy football. He wouldn't let me talk about. No, wait a minute. He wouldn't let me talk about the game during the while it was on.
No, because I
in
wanted to
progress.
get home and watch it. I
So-
told
so-
everybody in the press box at UNH, I'm recording the game. I don't want to hear the score.
So I had my phone just on the fantasy site to get the scoreboard for our fantasy league, and James White had negative points. I'm like, hey, this can't happen. So I lost both of my leagues, and you guys are still rolling along. So keep rolling.
Well, it's all thanks to Sam.
Yeah, well, there you go, Coach. 2-minute drill.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go with a. Here's what I would like to see happen. I would like to see the AFC Championship game played at Gillette Stadium, and I want another shot at the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Coach Belichick, the old phrase, in Bill we trust, or in Belichick we trust, and I agree with that. I think that the Patriots have had a look at a completely different offense than anyone else is running in the National Football League. And I think they want another crack at them. And I predict that we will be going to the Super Bowl once again. And
No, that means the Patriots will probably have to run the table. Because if there's a tie,
Right.
they lose the tiebreaker.
correct. Well, you know,
A lot of things can happen.
a lot of things
a lot
can
of things
happen. We've got Houston, we've got Dallas.
We got to get healthy wide
You
receivers.
got the Bills.
That's what we got.
Yeah, well, Buffalo might. I will be shocked if they even make the playoffs. If you've looked at their schedule the rest of the way, I mean, if they can beat Dallas in Dallas, hats off to them.
Right.
And since we mentioned Dallas, did you see today in today's paper that Jerry Jones was all over Garrett? All over the coach. He blamed that loss not on his players
Right.
or on the general manager,
Right.
of which he is the general manager as
Right.
well as the owner,
Right.
but on the coach.
Do you kick that field goal to make it 13-9, or do you try to tie it up?
I think, honestly,
On that
I
fourth down
think-
play, do you go for it?
Well, you know what? How many times had they been down there? Not many.
Right.
I think you take your shot
Yeah.
to get it in.
Right. I
So-
would, in hindsight, certainly that's the
Yeah.
decision to make. You figure you're probably going to get the ball again, but we'll see what comes up.
Well, my 2-minute drill is just going to be short and simple. Two coaches who've proven their ability by the success of their teams and the coaches they work with, and they both have the first name Bill. First one was Bill Belichick, but Bill Ball. I don't know Bill Belichick, but I am proud to say that I know a friend of Bill Ball. I want to congratulate the Blue Hawks on a great season. It was a great game over in Durham at Wildcat. But congrats to the Lancers, for their undefeated season, and to the city of Londonderry for their first championship in 21 years. And we'll see what's in store for next year. We have a special guest here on the Seacoast Sports Forum, the head coach of the champion Exeter Blue Hawks soccer team, Megan Young. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You and I got to talk before the tournament, and you guys went in undefeated. And as I said to you in that interview, you had kind of a bullseye on your back, but you were really relaxed about it because you thought Londonderry was the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think all season that's kind of how it was. Everything we did this year was kind of unexpected because throughout the league, Londonderry was the team. That's the one everyone was talking about. And I think even when we beat them the first time in the regular season, it was still, maybe it was a fluke, or I think they still were the team to beat. And so, that was great for us. And I think our girls took that in stride. And, everything we did, you talk every year about playing game to game and, on to the next opponent. But I think this team truly, embraced that. And, once we won a game, it was on to the next one. And we never really talked records or being undefeated. And I think that's what helped us a lot.
Everything that I know about your team is that they were just a great group of kids.
Oh, they were.
And it seemed like it was a real pleasure for you to work with them.
It was. Every group is special, but this one was extremely enjoyable. Everything, practices were easy, games were easy. There wasn't any drama that you get sometimes when you put 20 girls together. They just worked hard and they were unassuming and, just did what they were supposed to do and got the work done. But yeah, just a nice group of girls.
I think in your tournament run, and I had the pleasure of watching a lot of your games this year because I ran the clock for your games and things like that. Was it more nerve-wracking for you in the semifinals where you've been knocked out 3 years in a row to finally get past that semifinal game?
Yeah, I think that was always in the back of our heads. But to be honest, I think for me, the most nervous I am is in that first round of the tournament, which is the quarterfinals.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but every year it seems that one seems to be the most nerve-wracking. But that certainly was in the back of our heads, that we have been knocked out the past couple years. In that, so it was good to get over that hump. But
Beating Concord in the semifinals
Yes.
At Stellos. I don't know what your record is at Stellos Stadium. You certainly played a lot of playoff games.
we have, yeah. Stellos has been good to us.
And we have just finished up talking about the Blue Hawk football team in the finals in the rain. That game you played in a pretty bad rainstorm as
that
well.
was pretty bad.
What's it like in soccer in the rain?
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking for sure because the ball skips. Definitely for our defense, for our goalies, that was an issue that we talked a lot about because sometimes you just never know where that ball is going to go in those conditions. Right. But I thought we did a good job adjusting. It was a pretty sloppy game altogether, but on both sides, and I'm just glad we were able to overcome those conditions.
Did the players like to play in the rain?
Well, we practiced in it, so it wasn't really discussed as it being an issue. It was just, we don't cancel practices because we have turf, and we practice on the turf, so it's not something they're not used to, and it was just, all right, that's the weather, we're going to play in it.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, after you get that first goal, you guys knew you couldn't take the foot off the gas pedal. You had to keep going.
Oh, definitely,
I mean, when I saw the celebration, I got to watch the feed that they had out of Londonderry, and when everybody was, jumping up and down, and I thought, whoa, don't hurt anybody.
Yeah,
we still got some time left on the clock.
Right, I think it's, kind of relaxes you a little bit, and takes the nerves out of it. But for sure, Londonderry came right back and almost scored and to tie that game up. So yeah, I think that was kind of a wake-up call too. That hey, this game's not over, and Londonderry's so dangerous offensively that we knew it would go right to the wire. So
I think also you can't coach speed, but boy, you guys had speed.
we definitely did. Yeah, Ella Frazier and Sabrina Sherman up top. The two of them have unbelievable speed that you don't see quite often, and to have two of them up there with it
And
definitely
those 2 goals by Ella,
was tough to match. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your defenders also are not slow.
No. Yeah, I think across the board we had some speed, athleticism, and yeah, they really came together nicely.
And of course, your goalie.
Yes, and there's Megan, who
Megan,
did a tremendous job. We'll certainly miss her. But
That's a big challenge there in net.
oh yeah.
And
She only let 3 goals in all season, which is pretty impressive.
Not only the undefeated season, but that
Yeah.
it was something that was highlighted in 3.
Yeah.
Only 3 goals.
Yeah, she did a great job for us.
Wow.
But where she wasn't tested that much, she's always in the game. I can hear her yelling encouragement to the defenders in front of her and directing people and doing all those things. Is that something you coach with her often?
We do. We worked on it because certainly this year, her being a senior, she really took a lot more ownership back there. And I think from the start of the season, her presence alone in the goal really made a difference. And you're right, our defense was good and she wasn't tested a whole lot. But her just being out there, giving commands, being so supportive was a huge piece of it as well.
So let me see if I get this right here. That from 2006 to 2014, the girls soccer team reached 8 championship games and collected seven titles.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
When did you start as coach?
Oh, I'm going to say 2000.
Okay.
Yes.
So your run there, and then after 2014, Now you're back.
Yes.
Okay. Is this sweeter than any of the other ones?
They're all so different.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think since we've been out of it for a little bit of time,
Yeah.
it makes it a lot sweeter, just getting back there.
Right.
And like I said before, the group that we had this year, it was just so great that I'm so happy for them and proud of what they did.
Well, I mean, with all the press that Londonderry got, and all, everybody knew about Londonderry's girls soccer team, but for you to defeat them twice in the same year,
Yeah,
that's the highlight of the season.
Yeah, no,
I
it
think.
certainly was. And like I said, I couldn't be happier for a nicer group of kids, and they really did an outstanding job.
I asked this question of Jeff Holmes when the basketball team had their undefeated season and championship. What was the secret sauce for this team? What brought them together to get that championship and perfect season?
Honestly, I think it was their individual personalities. Like I said, it was never about an individual. It was always about a team. We had only 8 returning players from last year's team, so there were a lot of new faces out there, and I think they just came together and accepted their role on a daily basis, and each day someone new would step up and give us what we needed, and I think that attitude and that character just really set the tone from the start and lasted throughout.
One thing I was saying earlier, that I got to do one of the Wildcat soccer games, and the conditioning, the stamina necessary to just be out there and just for all that time out on the field. So you've got a team that obviously did a lot of training.
Yeah, we do a lot of conditioning, and in the moment, the girls certainly don't like it, but that's one thing you can control. You can control what kind of shape you're in, and so we make sure that that's something that another team isn't going to be better than us in that area, and we work on it, and it definitely shows.
And we go from fall sports now to the winter programs, but, and I hear this from Coach Ball when he gives the end of the season festivities with the team, he'll tell them, the season starts basically tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
I mean, even though technically it's on to winter sports.
Yeah.
The conditioning and everything. So same philosophy with you and your teams?
Yeah, I think this year we have a lot of multi-sport athletes. We have a lot doing indoor track, a few playing basketball as well. But there's certainly a number of them that play on their club teams or town teams, and they'll be playing all winter and all spring, and they
ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Was it different or competitive or not, or just laid back coaching at the same time your brother was coaching the boys?
It was nice. It definitely was competitive,
Yeah.
but he's been coaching in the division now. He came from Spalding, so we've always been supportive of each other. So it was nice to actually be able to cheer on his teams and root for them, and instead of rooting for another school. So yeah, it was fun.
For looking back at the history of girls soccer, 85 to 2005, you had Manchester West. I mean, West was always there in those years.
Oh yeah.
But the Blue Hawks now, from 2006 to 2020, Portsmouth Herald used the word dynasty. What do you think about that?
I might be a little too early for that.
Well, the coach called you the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I know, that
Coach
might
on
be a
our
little too
last
much
show.
too.
Well, the stats are there, Megan. 220 since 2006, 228 wins, 26 losses, and 8 ties. I think that's a pretty good record.
It is.
You're right up there, kiddo. You're right up there.
Now that we move off the championship of 2019, how many players do you have coming back next year?
So we'll have 10 returning players.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yep.
And how many overall in the program? From
This year-
freshmen to seniors.
Yep, this year there were about 88. So we range anywhere from 80 to 100 girls.
That's reflective of just Exeter High. I mean, you look around at some of the other schools in the state and kids who come out for sports, but every single Exeter program has JV teams and freshman teams.
Yeah,
and,
no, it's great.
And the enthusiasm of the student body is tremendous.
Yeah, no, it really is.
And
It's like a feeder system. You get that group coming up. that
Yeah.
always want to jump right into it.
Yep.
And that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I, mean,
I don't
we
know
see
much.
that with football
I don't know
and
much
baseball.
about girls soccer. And now, is there extra rec league? Is there an extra rec league or a
There is, yep.
junior high?
Yep,
And-
well, there's an Exeter travel or town teams that, yeah.
Okay, so you must. Did you work with them much? And
We do some
Do
stuff
workshops?
in the off-season,
Yeah.
help them with their tryouts and whatnot.
okay,
but,
okay.
yeah.
So you've got a handle on what's
A little bit,
down in the
yeah.
elementary school.
Yeah, and working
She's
at the
scouting.
middle school, it helps.
She's scouting.
That's right.
Oh, you know, that is the great thing about Exeter sports. I said the football, but the basketball, baseball, there's an interest from right down in the junior high school level on up.
Yes,
And
yeah.
that's great, you know, and the younger they get involved and interested in a sport.
Yeah,
And another thing, I know that Coach Ball and the others have said, you like to have the athletes try other sports, be involved in other sports,
Yeah.
not just specialize in one.
right.
You know, and that's also healthy too.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Yep.
Well, I tell you what, this is a special season and a special show for us. I'm glad we got to get you aboard. I said when we talked before it all started that we'd get you on board here at the Seacoast Sports Forum because she is the greatest of all time.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we look forward to having you join us again in the future. And are you going to just relax and enjoy the off season for a while?
A
or-
little bit, yeah. Yep, I
holidays?
definitely will enjoy the holidays and enjoy some time off.
Well, to all the senior girls on the team, congratulations. We got a picture of the ladies with the championship banner and trophy, and to all of them, Megan's going to be moving on to UMass next year.
Yes, yes, she
and
is. Yep.
we'll be looking forward to catching some of her games, I'm sure, on one of the local cable channels.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and, you know, it's been real fun to have you on board today. And again, the invite's always here to come back and join us anytime you like.
All right, well, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Megan Young, the
The GOAT.
GOAT now.
The GOAT of Exeter
champ-
girls soccer.
The championship coach of the undefeated 2019 NHIAA girls soccer team, the Exeter Blue Hawks. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.